Welcome back, you guys, to part 2. We are talking with voice actor Derek Shoales, who does the audiobooks for Rox and Charles and all of their series that they work on. So, Derek, in part 1, you touched on it a little bit about your process of doing an audiobook, what that production looks like. And holy crap, man, I did not think like all that goes into, like, I just thought you got up there and it was like natural and you're just like, yes, I got this, right? But I didn't really think about like how much, like, I don't even know the best word, like research or what all kind of goes into it. Cause you had mentioned about, you have accents. And then we were talking off about if you have like different speech impediments and those things, what all would go into that. Right.
Yeah.
And so tell us what your process is and how you got into doing voice narration for books.
Wow.
I would love to hear it.
Okay. Well, since you brought up first, we'll go with the process. Because it's most audiobook narrators, voice actors follow the same process. Not there's subtleties depending upon the narrator, but like my voice coach has taught me this process, both for nonfiction and fiction. And like I kind of touched on previously, it's really once you get the book, the manuscript, I have to look through now. When Charles and Rox sent it to me, it's like more of a retail copy. So there's like the all the other like the table of contents and stuff. So I kind of have to get to where we start in the book, and then once that point, like I said, I open up a spreadsheet. I'm recording all the characters, physical characteristics, anything that's mentioned about like a dialect or a language or idiosyncrasies. And I even kind of go back to one book we did where there was this scientist, and I was playing him as because like he did human experimentation, and it was one of those things where I treated him one way until I got to like 3/4 of the way through the book, because I had missed this one description about how he snapped at somebody in his speech. And I was like, wait, he can't be unemotional if he snaps at somebody contradicting him. So I had to go back and re-record a lot of it because there were situations that mimicked that. So that's why I record everything into a spreadsheet and have them available. And then as I'm going along, when I start recording, I'll take and record like maybe 5 seconds of that character speaking, naming it, and saving that as an MP3 so that I have a library to go back to. So I'm not constantly having to look which chapter they were in and then, finding the spot in there to listen to it. So I can easily recapture the tone and timbre of the voice. If they have a specific accent, like the Enigma series is global. Like that's not even global. I've even had to do an Afrikaans accent, and I was never expecting to have to do a South African accent. And yeah, there was one in there. Oh, maybe and we've had every country like Switzerland, Germany, Spain. So what I'll use sites like the Intellectual Dialect of English Archive. The Brits actually went to every country in the world and recorded native speaking people, and they recorded them doing a normal speech like "Come and Get Secure," and they read it through in English. Then the second half of the recording is them just chatting, and that's where I get the real nitty gritty of how they talk when they're feeling passionate about something. So I can get accents and the regional dialects the way it sounds, so I can try to closer to mimic that. So that way I can get more accurate accent. That's if I need to. With Charles and Rox, most of the time, a lot of characters come back, and I can redo it that way. But once we get done with the recording, at that point, I have to send it off to a proofer, and what the proofer does, it's like with an author, they run it through somebody to check to make sure grammar is correct. In my case, I have to make sure that I read all the words correctly, because a lot of times you have whisper sync with Audible, and stuff, and the text matching to the recording, and if it's off by a certain amount, that breaks. So I have to be mindful of that, and that's why when the proofer's done, they'll send me a spreadsheet back of here, chapter 1, and you made this mistake at this time code and this time code. And usually they include an MP3 of all of the mistakes so that I can get the proper tone that I was recording at the time. Then I re-record all the mistakes, send it to the final production person, the producer. They'll take my mistakes, paste them into the recording, and then make sure the spacing is correct. And a lot of times they'll look for any like clips or any weird tones, like if somebody hits the door or something like that, and then finally generate all the final recordings and then send that back to me so we can upload them. And that's like the full process of making an audiobook, really. As far as
Well, what does the turnaround time look like for you on that? Because that sounds like you have to be super organized, and I thrive in chaos and not
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, and it really depends, and there's a difference between being an indie audiobook narrator and working for publishers. I do both. So, when you're an indie, I have to be not just a narrator, but the project manager. So I keep a list of very short list of proofers I work with and final audio producers that I trust. And when I get a book, I have to reach out to them and say, "Hey, when do you have free time to be able to do this?" And a lot of times they'll ask me like, "What's the page count? Like, what's the estimated run time?" And I get that to them, and then they can look at their schedules. As far as like my narration, when I'm like booking a book, because I have to book the whole project. So I pay the proofer and the producer, that comes out of the pay that I'm given. So I have to budget that into the final project cost. And usually for me, I'll estimate final recording time, just narration alone, is a 3-to-1 ratio. So for every 1 hour of recording, it took almost 3 hours to get to that. And that's kind of including the proofing and the producing as well into it in some cases. So it's a rough estimate. So if a book is like a 10-hour recording time, I'm already thinking it's going to take 30 hours to produce this book. So I'm factoring in that for scheduling. However, the way audiobooks are priced for production, it's not on the hours that you work on it. It's the final run time. So when I'm quoting, I'm not quoting on that 30 hours. I'm quoting on the 10-hour runtime. So a lot of times you'll see that's why, and I'm bringing this up because this pops up in social media where people think audiobook narrators are making a boatload of money. And in reality, it's not, because I might charge around $250 per finished hour, but that's cost is coming, some of that's going out to the other people I'm paying as well. And that's not an hour for 30 hours. So if you divide that up, I'm making like maybe $15 an hour, $20 an hour. Not bad. But that also doesn't account for, a lease, health insurance, all the stuff as an independent contractor I'm covering. So I'm just stating that because like a lot of people don't realize the hidden costs of being a voice actor, and that
Yeah.
factors in everything like that. So
Yeah, no, I think that's great because I do honestly feel like, people always talk about how having audiobooks produced can be expensive, but they
yeah,
don't understand the backside of it. And I
yeah.
think it's important for you being on the backside of it for them to understand what really goes on. Cause yeah, I will help you out. People feel like audiobook people make a shit ton of
Yeah,
money and they
yeah.
really don't, to be
Right.
honest. Truly don't. So I
Honestly,
understand that. Yeah.
the worst part is I don't just do audiobook narration too. I do commercial. I used to do a lot of e-learning, not so much anymore. I've done 1 or 2 video games here and there. So a lot of the stuff, I even do like dubbing work for a recording studio in Italy. So I'm in all these different facets. And I'll tell you this right now, the ROI on recording for audiobooks is the worst, because a lot of times I can record like a 30-second commercial and get paid like, 500, $1,000, depending on who it is. Whereas I'm doing 30 hours of work, and I'm not, I'm only getting that, but that 30 is actually 10 hours. So I'm only getting like half. In the end of it, it's like half. And I'm like, yeah, but I love doing it because it's pure acting. That's the reason why most of us do audiobooks, is because we like the performance of it. It's not like sitting in an hour-long recording session with a writer and a studio director in the ear saying, "All right, that sounds great. Can we go back to time code? Can we go back to 30 seconds? And can you give us a little more brightness? Can you give us a little more?" A directed session is really brutal. That's why there's a justification for the money, but
Right.
it's a lot less recording time to make a little bit more versus audiobooks, which is pure acting, and you're on your own, but you have to cover a lot more of the costs too in that. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
weird kind of thing that's been doing that way for years.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. So how did Rox and Charles, how did you guys meet Derek? How did you guys find each other? I want to hear this.
It is a really, really interesting story, and it's a lot of quinky dinky that went into that as well. So
Mm.
the very first book that we recorded, called The Enigma Factor, was actually recorded by a different narrator. And there was something that I personally had a problem with. It didn't get changed on the book. And so I decided to go shopping for a narrator for book number 2 because it just didn't feel like the relationship was going to be there, and we wanted to have a relationship, not just a once and done book, but we wanted to have the voice of our series, which fortunately we have with Derek. And so I put out a request for auditions, which you can do through ACX. They allow you to give a little sample and put it out for auditions, and then you get all these different samples in. And we got, I don't know, I think 9 different samples back on that one. Charles, wasn't around 9? And the first 3 or 4 that we listened to, well, we had to leave the room in between. It was
well, it was like, okay, next. Oh, all right, thank you. Next. and when you showed up, we stopped listening. After you, it was like, that's it.
Yeah.
We're not going to look at it. I'm not going to talk to anybody. No, we're going to make him an offer. We're going to. That's the voice. That's who I think is the Enigma voice.
And and it's just amazing. And the other part that was so interesting about that is we were actually the first, unless I'm getting it wrong, Derek, we were the first book you auditioned for.
I was going to say that. It's the whole thing is hilarious because I'd done, so God, I can't remember what year it was. I started doing voice acting in 2012, and that was after I got coaching, and I got scammed big time on audiobooks. And I was I did it for 2 months with a scam company, and I said, no, I'm done. I'm writing off audiobooks. I refuse. If this is the industry, I want no part of it. I'm going back to commercial and stuff. So I went like 5 or 6 years of just not even touching audiobooks. And then my other job changed, and I could no longer do directed sessions. And when I talked to one of my coaches, he's like, the only thing you can do is e-learning or audiobooks. And I'm like, audiobooks. Oh, all right. So I'm fine. He's like, go to ACX, take a look, just see what you got. You might find something. I'm like, okay. So I go on there and I find this script, and it was this interest. And I was interesting because I remember distinctly, it was 2 parts of the book, and it was, God, I can't remember their names, but it was the two Mexican brothers, and then it was a male and a female at the end, and I had to do both. I'm like, and I started reading through it, and I started laughing my butt off at the first because the brothers were just chatting, waiting for an airplane to land, and the whole thing was just them goof. I'm like, oh my God, that's hilarious. And the other part was just like, damn it, it really felt natural. So I'm like, I'm gonna audition, and I did it, and that was the very first audiobook in like 5 or 6 years I had auditioned for, and I was shocked when I got it. I was like, oh my God, great. Then I'm like, what do I do now?
Now he's so popular, we'll wait months if we have to make sure he can do our stories.
Oh, I love it. So you guys are like friends.
Yeah.
I love it. Family. I love it.
I actually surprised them once dropping when I was in Texas really briefly, and I found out they were doing this authors thing in, I can't remember what city it was, Dallas or something. And I was up in
Dallas.
Fort Worth. Yeah. And I was there for a programming conference. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go down. I'm going to see if I can. So I rented a car, drove down, found the place, and they're just talking. And I'm like, I look and I'm like, oh, no, there they are. And I just slipped right in, didn't say a word, didn't tell them I was coming. And I pop in the bed, like, what are you doing here? I'm like, here for a conference. And it was just hilarious. I was like, first time I've seen you in except for the award ceremony, but like that was years before.
I love it. I love it.
Yep.
I love it. Well, Derek, stick around because for part 3, you guys make sure you come back for part 3. We're going to get Derek talking about some amazing things that he is doing, has won, and how you can also work with Derek. So make sure you come back for part 3. Until next time, you guys. Bye for now, everybody.